Hey, if you're seeing this video right now, chances are you're feeling really heavy and you don't quite know what it is. You kind of know what it is, and chances are you know what it is, but you're not quite sure what to do about it. If you're seeing any of my content for the first time, hey, I'm Joseph. I am a certified spiritual life coach, and I post a lot of content related to spirituality and self-awareness and a whole lot of things in between that. And so you may have seen my content either on TikTok or Instagram or Google search engine. And what I'd like to do right now is take some of that content and dissect it here on my YouTube channel. Because on Instagram, on TikTok, I share a lot of expansive information in such a short span of time. And so I want to take a moment to talk about this heaviness right now. So sit tight. Hey, you're not going crazy right now. Yes, I'm talking about that feeling of impending doom and heaviness. You are not losing your senses. You're actually coming to your senses. Here's the reason. This is both personal and collective. It's personal because what you're doing is something courageous. You've been diving deep into your shadows, deep into your traumas, deep into your triggers to resolve some things. And it hasn't been easy. Nobody said any of this was, because what you're actually doing is you're performing an exorcism on yourself. Meaning every shadow, every harmful thing done to you, with you, through you, by you, the light that's within you is bursting through the seams. Not to be judged, not to be condemned, but to be witnessed, to be seen, to be felt, to be heard for what you felt you had to do with your light just to survive. And survival mode is no longer the only option here. Therefore, this has become the pulse for a collective exorcism, meaning every shadow, every harmful thing done by every major power system in this society, as well as those that play a willful and a conscious role in it, are being brought to the light, your light. What this means is that the moment that you chose to let your light shine in its own unique way is the moment that you became too sensitive to hiding under the weight of your dark shadows and the shadows that surrounded you. Every conflicting thought, every conflicting feeling, every conflicting action gets magnified. And by default, this conjures up a lot of the fear. And fear is actually common in this process because the light that you are is fearless. And fearlessness is not the absence of fear. It's being able to witness and face it and acknowledge it and make peace with it courageously. Survival mode says, fight it and resist it with a vengeance. Thriving says, grieve it, embrace it with compassion. And the shadows that want to come in and be integrated by your light will come in without force. And the shadows that don't want to be integrated by that light will be released and left to their own devices and crumble by their own karma without force. This kind of crumbling and integrating is happening on an internal level as well as on a global scale externally. And I know you might be asking, so what does this mean for humanity going forward? This means that there is an increase in emotional intelligence and human empathy, and a decrease in sociopathic narcissism. This kind of awareness allows the mind's eye and the heart's compass to witness, to support, and to sustain alternate options that have been hiding in plain sight. You like to think that the negative stuff is hiding in plain sight, but the positive stuff is doing the same exact thing. This includes empowering businesses, institutions, education, entertainment, digital content that actually promote this emotional intelligence and human empathy, and overall human wellness on all fronts. And if you're seeing this message right now, then you are fully aligned with one of so many different of these new options. And this isn't a hope for something better. You are actively participating in the shaping of the better right now. So chin up, be empowered, trust that you are exactly where you are meant to be right now, and stay the course. You ain't seen nothing yet. How do you feel about that? There's some very pivotal things in that message that relate to what's happening right now. And one of the biggest things that I like to share is how we don't give enough credit to Mother Earth, Mother Gaia, this planet that we all exist and live in, for how intelligent she is. We don't give enough credit for how aware she really is. We don't give credit for how resilient She really is. Because we live in a society that literally tells us that we need to do this, we need to do that, we gotta do it this way, we gotta do it that way, or else. And then we begin approaching our actions, we begin approaching doing things and getting things and striving from things from a very disempowered, fear-based state of being. And we begin projecting what needs to be fixed, what needs to be healed, what needs to be resolved from that state. And then we literally cut off our ability to see the possibilities, the benevolent possibilities for what could happen when we actually take a step back and start responding. Before we start responding, actually observing the terrain around us, observing the terrain within us. But it's when you are observing your inner terrain that you begin to see how Mother Earth, Mother Gaia has the ability to not only fix herself, but to heal herself with or without any of us. Now, this brings in a very pivotal point when it comes to observing your inner terrain, because this is where the inner work comes in, the shadow work, the dark night of the soul. But I actually prefer it to call it the awakening of the soul, because the soul itself is light. So it's already aware. It's already full of joy, full of peace, full of healing, full of everything that's already perfect as it is. But this human experience, meaning the society that we live in, is dark. That's the default condition here. That's unavoidable. It's inevitable. So when you have experiences that create this reaction, this visceral, oh my God, panic, anxiety, worry, stress, and fear, when you become aware of that, this is now your soul being activated, saying it's too heavy here, and you begin to feel that. And when you begin to observe from within, then you can start to see everything from outside of you from a completely different vantage point. Hence the beginning of the video, where it mentions diving deep into your triggers, diving deep into your anger, diving deep into your frustrations, diving deep into your darkness to resolve some things. Doing that process alone is very excruciating. It's very terrifying. It's very alarming. It's the thing that awakens you. All of that feels exactly like an exorcism. I know many of us are aware of what an exorcism is based on Hollywood movies. We see it in film, we see it in television, we read it in books, we see it in content. That's literally what it is. You are now looking at the dark shadows within yourself to actually start to clear the room, clear the space on the inside. I have a client who is an anime lover. For you anime lovers out there, you get it. They were telling me about this one particular episode about a priest who was charged with the task of performing an exorcism on someone in the show, only to find out that the person who needed to be exorcised was him, the priest, which was an interesting plot twist, because we think that the evil spirits and the malevolent forces are outside of us, but in fact, the very thing that's outside of you is only a reflection of what's within you. Now, this puts this concept in a completely different perspective, because the light and the dark exist at the same time. The positive and the negative exist at the same time. The good and the evil exist at the same time. And when you approach and when you carry out the courageous act of going within to face your darkness, to face your shadows, to face your triggers, to face those things that are malevolent and evil, only then will you get to start to see the good that's there. Not only see the good, but appreciate the good. And it takes you out of this fight, flight mode, survival mode. It takes you out of this need to fight, this need to run away, and this need to freeze by the overwhelmingness of it all. Because you're now able to see it for what it is, not for what you think it should be, not what you think it could have been. That's the observation part. You're not observing from a state of projecting your fears onto it. You're observing from the state of just neutrality, just from a state of, what are you here to show me? What do you want to do here? Because every time you ignore the shadows, every time you ignore the triggers, that's when they get bigger. That's when they amplify. And all the triggers, all the fear, all the heaviness, all the overwhelm wants from you is to be seen, to be heard, just as it is. For you to actually look and say, oh, I'm feeling hurt right here. And then notice and observe where the hurt is. Is it in your gut? Is it in your chest? Is it in your head? Is it in your back? Is it in your arteries? Is it in your joints? And when you can actually sit and pace yourself and breathe through what you're observing, then it becomes a little less overwhelming. It becomes a little less excruciating. It becomes a little less tormenting. Because as you are giving your compassionate attention to those things, then guess what? It just rises up and it passes through. That's the magic here. Then you open up every cell in your body for that peace, for that joy, for that benevolence of all that is to come in and allow you to see your light for what it is, for you to show up in the fullness of it, regardless of what people think, regardless of what people say, regardless of how people are seeing you. And when you do that, everything around you, physically, externally, begins to adjust itself to that. Then this also makes you very sensitive. It makes you very sensitive to those that are operating in darkness, those that are operating with malevolent intention. You become very sensitive to it and you get to see it very clearly. And then you can move a little differently because you are no longer hiding under the weight of your own shadows, the weight of your own triggers, the weight of every conflicting thought, emotion, and action. This is what amplifies the courage and the safety and the confidence in your body. This doesn't get rid of the dark. This doesn't get rid of the shadows. This doesn't get rid of the fear. This just allows you to become fearless. This allows you to shine more brightly. And as was said in the video, fearlessness is not the absence of fear. It's the ability to face the fear with courage. There's a saying that says, what you resist persists. This is what darkness and shadows and malevolence feeds off of. It feeds off of your resistance. It feeds off of your desperation. It feeds off of your lack of awareness. This means that the counterintuitive approach to the fear is actually the best approach. And the counterintuitive approach is to pause before you strike. Pause before you say that thing that's going to hurt someone's feelings. Pause, then connect with your body. And how do you connect with your body? Your breath. Your breath is the ultimate life force in your physical body. You do it consciously and you do it unconsciously. It's just a part of your mechanism. And so for you to connect with that consciously allows you to now start to observe what's going on in your body. Because when you're not observing what's going on in your body, then you'll be doing everything under the sun to distract yourself. You'll be overindulging or completely depriving yourself from pleasures, from anything that will provide you a sense of comfort and relief, because that's what you really want. But in order to get to that, you got to go through the very thing that you don't want, which is the darkness, which is the fear, which are the shadows, which are the things that are seemingly going out of control. It's so easy to invest all of your energy into global matters, international matters, national matters, and forget to remember that you matter. Most of all, your energy, your emotional state, your mental state matters most of all. You can't assist anyone else outside of yourself if you're not pouring into the one that matters the most. This doesn't mean that you pour into yourself only and everybody else just fend for themselves. That would be a selfish act. But pouring into yourself is a self-full act. You are filling your cup, as they say. So that as you're filling your cup, then the more full you become, the more it overflows when it keeps filling up. And then, as they say, you assist everyone else from your overflow. But if you've not allowed yourself to know and experience what it's like to be full, meaning full of your joy, full of your peace, full of your light, and it's going to feel almost impossible to share that and actually be satisfied and appreciative and grateful for the ability to share, because you'll be so focused on trying to hold everything in so that nobody steals it and rationing it out because I might lose it. And then when it gets like that, then your light becomes transactional. And transactional light and transactional love is essentially, what can you do for me in exchange for what I can do for you? It becomes an exchange. It's about what I can get from you rather than what I'm actually able to give and what I'm actually able to bring to you, whether you are able to give that back to me equally or not. You've got to grieve the loss of that part of yourself who felt they had to protect you so that your light wouldn't outshine everything around you. Being able to stand out in your light allows you to be more compassionate, allows you to be free, allows you to be more expressive, and it calls in more of an opportunity for you to expand and grow that light. This gives you an opportunity to trust the magic within you, but also trust the magic that's outside of you, so that you can see how the things outside of you that you thought needed fixing, the things outside of you that you thought needed to be changed, will naturally change when you change. What does it mean when you are changing? It just simply means your perception is expanding. Your perspective has increased in such a way where survival mode is no longer the only option that exists. It is in fact an option, but when you are living and existing in survival mode, you think that's the only option. Meaning if you grew up in a poor environment, if you dealt with very toxic friends and family and relationships, you to some degree think that that's the only option, that's your lot in life, that's what you are meant to have. But it's only when you deal with your reactions and your responses to that and begin to expand your perception, the things around you, the relationships around you, the situations and the circumstances around you begin to reflect that empowerment. Everything no longer looks like separation. You begin to see how everything is connected. And in that connection, the things that are a reflection of your empowerment will naturally gravitate towards you, and the things that are meant for your disempowerment will naturally gravitate away from you. You are no longer looking at life around you, life internationally, life globally. You're no longer looking at life from disempowered lenses. You are now looking at life from more of an empowered lens. You are able to see the good hiding in plain sight, but also very obvious, in ways that you were only looking at the negative, hiding in plain sight and in obvious ways. But what's even more masterful about this is that you're able to see all of it. The stuff that's obvious, good and bad, but also the stuff that's not so obvious, good and bad. And when you've allowed yourself to gain this expanded awareness and to actually flow through the ups and the downs of it, your emotional intelligence increases, and your ability to be more empathic, more empathetic to those around you increases as well. That's when life and love becomes transformative, because you are now living in the state of, I get that. I personally may not be able to relate to it, but I understand it. And the understanding of it all literally changes everything. In other words, you're able to see how Mother Earth, how Mother Gaia is really healing herself, and how there are those on the planet who are assisting in that healing. But you also see the parts of Mother Earth that are being destroyed and being terrorized, and you get to see those who are contributing to that. As you expand in your awareness, you now get to take responsibility for your role in which one you're doing more of. Are you terrorizing things and creating more of the conflict? Or are you resolving and healing your participation and your perception of it so that you can start feeding into the parts of Mother Earth and Mother Gaia that are healing? Do you see the paradox here? This is not a war and a battle in the way that you think it is. What it is a fight to get your attention. Like, are you giving too much of your attention to the things that need to be fixed, to the things that are not going in the way that you thought it should be going? Or are you giving more of your attention to the things that are already fixed, that are already going well, and ways that you can actually amplify that wellness? You get to see this in the most practical of ways. And the most practical way that you can see this is in what you're consuming on a day-to-day basis. Since our society is connected to social media, what content are you consuming on social media? Content that's keeping you in a disempowered, fear-based state, or content that's more empowering and keeping you in an inspired state? What foods and drinks are you consuming? Things that are constantly keeping you low energy in a state of sadness and depression, or foods and drinks that are keeping you energized and in an empowered state? These very practical things play a significant role in what you are amplifying more on this planet. And it's only when you become aware of it in your own terms and in your own way, and when you begin to take responsibility for your role in what you're now aware of, that's the only way you can commit to showing up in a completely different way, or to the way that you've already been doing it. And if the way that you've been doing it has been causing more of the suffering and more of the darkness and more of the shadows, and that's not what you want, then this is the perfect opportunity, the perfect season to turn it all around. then you start to create a series of events that will allow you to take the path where you get to see a difference. This lightens the load a little bit. This doesn't mean that you're not going to feel heavy. The intention here isn't to not feel heavy. The intention is to not feel the shifts and the twists and the turns of your energy. The intention is treating yourself well, treating yourself kindly, treating yourself with gentleness, treating yourself with compassion, and literally committing to that process in practical ways and in very big ways. Because in order for it to get big, you got to make it practical. What am I doing on a day-to-day basis that's feeding my empowerment, that's feeding my light, that's feeding my compassion? And do more of that. Well, we've come to the end of this video, and I appreciate you for sticking with me till the end. I intend to do more of this, so if you enjoy this, then I invite you to please like, subscribe, share, comment, literally keep this content going and expanding and spreading the word, because this is what allows this kind of content to be seen and to be witnessed, so that people can see that there's more than just one option here. Okay? So in the meantime, in between time, be kind to yourself, be gentle with yourself, and make the best of this right now moment and the right now moments to come.